Hey, Bry Guy here. I got Ben with me, and we agree a lot on a lot of games. We've been friends for a long time, and a lot of our tastes overlap. And there are places where our tastes don't particularly overlap. And Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of them. Now, I've played it through, and there are definitely moments that I enjoyed the game, but my opinion is that it's outright worse than the original in every way because it loses all of the atmosphere and the feelings that it brings are different. They're not the right feelings at the right times and they don't feel the same. And I'm going to give my opinion here on where it goes wrong with the tower fall scene. And anyways, so let's watch this and then we're going to talk about this.
Marlene, what did you do with her?
So
Where are you?
anyways, there's also a sea of exposition and melodrama leading up to the tower fall in the remake.
Well, it's there in the original too. It's just not voice acted. You can skip it as quick
It's not
as
the
you can
same.
read.
It's not the same words. So they also go way more into behind the scenes with Sengen. They give way too much away with everything going on with the Turks and Shinra.
Ancient.
Run! You have to go now!
Do you actually have to run to it in this one? So much. Yeah. So much exposition and melodrama. Robot voice dictating things.
Which was in the original too.
Was it?
There is a countdown, like an automated voice, although it's not a voice acted.
Yes.
If we don't get
And now you have this running around, weird forced obstacles. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but the tower is falling.
And I'm pretty sure in the original you had to run over to the zip line, but it was literally just a 3-second run.
Yeah, wasn't very much. So, one thing that really gets me here too is I am not a huge fan of like rocking out in these specific scenes in these places. It's not the intent of the original at all. So we have here like going non-stop the entire time. Like this is trying to feel cool, and
Yes.
And
I will agree with you there.
it's like, and then this stupid ghost thing on top of all of that. Oh, they're faking you out. Did he die? Okay, so this scene where you see President Shinra. Oh, and then of course they cut away after like 3 seconds to Kate Sith. Like, oh, Kate Sith is so sad, even though it's being controlled by Sang. And then this
Spoiling, Brian!
goofy thing here. I feel nothing from this. It's all the rocking out. It's all of that. Let's watch the plate drop in the original. Do we have music? They did this. So this part here, they did in the video on the remake. So it was a video on the screen instead of like actually showing up. Sang showing up with Aerith.
Going up to run away.
Showing up to run. Well, to take off. To be like, hey, she's okay. I'm taking her where you have to go, right? I love how he's actually shooting, right? You know, he's... This part, the gameplay part is silly, but it contrasts with the next scene so well. So when the plate actually drops, which is just a few seconds away.
So see, there's just as much exposition here, really.
Yeah, there's a bit. I guess it's like the text doesn't feel as cheesy when it has it. It doesn't seem like it's as much, because I cut into a lot of it. Okay, so now we get like the amped up music, where it's like, oh no, what's gonna happen? It's not rocky as much. And there's a little bit more jeopardy in it. Now we're like, okay, we're in peril. Oh, use that wire to get out. So the music transition here that happens when you jump up, eventually. Anyways, swing down. I feel way more. So this goes quiet. You have the tower falling. Everyone seems terrified. I love, and like the Akira, like shooting it through the window, like screams, like no music, hear the screams. I don't know, it feels way more impactful. It's not like the whole freaking time.
Well, yes, like the rock music does change the feel of this.
And then this here transitions to opera music, looking the camera angle, looking at the character here, like how malicious he can do this. And then like the sound effects here as it looks up at the character, like this is like you don't know who he is, you don't know what he's doing, you just know that something terrible happened. This character is ominous as anything, and it's so much more intriguing. The other scene in the remake shows you everything and makes everyone less important. It's weird how so little things, like just the bad choices of music, rocking out the whole time, trying to show that scene at President Shinra right away, but then cutting to Kate Sith being like, right? It's like, does not have the same feel at all. It's like you go from being like, who's so terrible that they could do this thing, to like, no one really feels like they even died in the remake. Even though all these people died, the setting, the mood, the feel doesn't communicate that at all. It communicates like, I'm so cool, everyone's dying. And it's like, that's stupid. That's not Final Fantasy VII. That's not the intent of the original at all. And this is, I mean, I can get in this all day because I think that, I mean, Tetsuya Nomura did not direct Final Fantasy VII. He was the character artist. And I definitely, Katase and Sakaguchi did, like, it's their baby, and it's so weird seeing it carried out by someone who, I don't know if Nomura knows how to make me feel anything anyways. Some people seem to, but I feel like those are fans of Kingdom Hearts, and I'm not one of those. But when I contrast those two scenes, it's just like looking up at Shinra. Where, let's go to that, just like, Shinra looking down, and then you looking at this like crazy, that the bass that comes in that sound effect, making you be like, where is this? Because you're like, what is this mysterious place? This is interesting. Hey, I gotta go here. Versus, what is this? Oh, we're swinging. Like, it's still rocking out. I don't know. I feel nothing from the remake in this. And I feel like every critical moment that made me feel in the original game has this exact problem in the remake. It is lessened, or the intent is completely shifted. And I don't think that makes it better. I think that it's gained a lot of visual quality in exchange for all of its emotional heft.
For one, yes, I will say the original music and lack of music, well, particularly the lack of music, is far better than this one's, I guess you would call it hero music for it.
Yeah.
But that's mostly because most people are afraid of silence, so having a scene without music might be off. They might be afraid of the casual audience being bored or just not getting it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I see this scene and I play the remake and I feel like it ruined all my favorite scenes. Like showing Sephiroth too much ruined it for me.
But when it's not a remake, it's a sequel.
Yeah,
so
but that's another stupid point that I don't think they should have done. See, the reason that everyone wanted Square to remake Final Fantasy VII is because they weren't happy with all of the games they were making. So when they remake it and changed it into one of the games that they were making anyways, they missed the point of why everyone wanted them to remake Final Fantasy VII. That's my opinion. I know that some people love the remake, but I mean I played it and there were moments that I got that feel. Like brief moments, but they weren't the moments they should have been. Like when you first are walking around the slums with Tifa at the beginning. They had a few moments where they played the classic music and you're walking around, and I would get that kind of feeling that I got from the original game. But I can watch the cutscenes from the original game now and get those feelings, and I watch the new cutscenes and I feel nothing. And it's all where the music's placed, where the camera angles are placed, how long it holds, and what it's showing and what it's not showing. The remake shows everything, even when it shouldn't. And I think that's part of why it's such a letdown for me. I mean, never forget that like you were scared of Sephiroth in the original. It's like when you hear about him, it's all of this talk about him without seeing them. Whereas in the remake, you see Sephiroth before they even really talk about him. When Cloud sees it in the memories and stuff. And then when you are in the Shinra Tower and you're kidnapped in the original, and you go to sleep and you wake up and everyone is just murdered around the building and you're walking through the halls. And it's like, that was terrifying for me when I was a kid. And then when you finally go, you find Genova and you look through the glass and you're like, what the heck is that? Like all of that. It was actually like a slight bit of a horror game in that brief window. It was like a section of Resident Evil in there. And then when you get out of the city and then you see the snake that you got your butt kicked by accident like 2 or 3 times outside of, and then you get to the other side after you breed a chocobo, and then you're finally able to do that, and you see Sephiroth has easily killed the snake on the other side. Like all of this is like you didn't know who Sephiroth is. You haven't fought him yet. You haven't seen what he can. Everything that you're struggling to do, he's doing so easily. And the power scale in the remake is all over the place. And then you fight Sephiroth, and you're crazily leveled up, and all of this stuff, and it's like, none of that makes me feel anything. It's missing the intent of everything that made the original game good. That's my opinion. I think the gameplay was kind of fun. I think it was less floaty than Kingdom Hearts, which was good, but it was more floaty than it should have been, and it kind of broke tangibility sometimes, but I still had fun with the combat overall. And I think that they did fine in that direction. It's everything that they did around the atmosphere, decision making, and the new scenes. Like, I honestly, where's Rosh?
Rosh?
Is it Roche from?
Oh, him. Oh, yeah. Your favorite character.
My least favorite character ever in a game. I honestly, like, I'm tempted to make an animated GIF of Rosh just spinning around with no gravity whatsoever, like no sense of tangibility, because I feel like, and that like this is Tetsuya Nomura's games in a nutshell. All of them are just like some character flipping out ludicrously for, oh come on with these stupid ads. Anyways, it's just like no sense of anything tangible. It's like, oh, cars just, what is this? Like, the physics don't make any sense. It just flies off after it lands on him. Like,
in a land that has magic balls that can create elements and summon monsters.
Okay, like honestly, compare all of this to, sorry, not remake, Final Fantasy VIII intro.
What are you spoiling, Brian?
There's no remake. Honestly, the thing is like, you need tangibility to care about things. And Final Fantasy VIII isn't my favorite Final Fantasy, but this fight gets it right. This fight really gets it right. They're grounded. Yeah, there's magic, but there's rules. There's risk. You feel like when he gets cut across the face that it's like, there's impact. When your character is kicking an apartment building at someone 1 second and then like, there's no sense of tangibility. You don't really fear for characters that are so overpowered. You know, there's very few things that have scaled like that and done it well. But like this sword fight, even though it's like ancient now, it feels so much more weighted. You feel the risk. You're like, something can happen to these characters. How is this better than every cutscene Final Fantasy has done since then in terms of impact, not in terms of graphic fidelity? Like, yeah, they shoot magic here, but it's not like when like I feel like if they did the scene now, Squall would hit Cypher with a sword, he'd do a triple backflip and land somewhere else. You know, it'd be like something stupid like that. And now he has the opportunity, and he sickly takes advantage of it. Like, and anticipation. Like, I'm sorry, but this is like, you watch this, and then you watch whatever the heck is going on with Roche backflipping like an absolute maniac, and it's like, this is not better. I don't see what's better about this nonsense. It's just like, they're losing the impact. They're losing everything. You need world tangibility. You need characters to feel like they actually are at risk, that their harm can come to them in some way or another. And that's something that Final Fantasy's really lost. And, you know, even the best Square game that has nothing to do with Square in recent memory is Nier Automata, as far as I'm concerned. And you have that section where 2B is completely hacked, and you have to forcibly walk while she's messing up. And there's something really awesome about that feel in that game. You feel like your character's at risk. You start feeling like the world is tangible. Like, there's individual things that games can do that can kind of show that or force that. And it's something Square has lost entirely, but their heyday, like all of the games from, I'd say, Final Fantasy VI all the way through to like starting to taper off at 10, had some of that feel. Like, Parasite Eve has more impact than any of these new games. So does Xenogears. So does 6, 7, 9. Like, even Chrono Cross. Like, these games all have more world tangibility. More, when you play the gameplay, even though it's silly and it looks ridiculous to some extent, the way that the story and the story elements play out make your characters feel tangible and at risk. And then that carries you through gameplay and makes it more believable. That's something that Square has lost.
A bunch of what you're saying, sure, I agree with, but I'm also from the same era as you. Younger people might not see it that way because their forms of tangibility might be a little different than ours. Like, they might see more risk in fantastical fighting rather than more traditional style fighting.
I don't know if that's true. I'd be willing to listen to them. They might think it's cooler, but I don't think that they think it's more believable. And I
don't know about that, because with it being shown so much in various forms of media, they might assume that's more like, it might be fantastical, but it's still realistic, like high tier realistic fighting might be closer to this than like traditional slow purposeful like attack fighting is in like for like our relation of being, rather than like flipping around and like parkouring off of walls before attacking people, rather than just like traditional parry, dodge, and like anticipation attack swings. They might see that more as a staged fight rather than a traditional fight.
Yeah, but are you seeing this, Ben? Like, the motorcycle doesn't even slow down. It's like the power is so intangible that you can never feel anything. Look at this. Just drives it. It doesn't slow down when it hits it. You know, it's not even like, what rules are we supposed to believe exist in this? It speeds up after it makes collision with the legs. That's not how friction works. That's not how any of this works. And then afterwards, what? How does that flip work? You could never do that.
If another thing, though, with every Final Fantasy, doesn't matter if it's new or old, remade or not, someone gets stabbed in a story sequence and you can't use a Phoenix Down on them to bring them back.
Yes. So there are things like that in Final Fantasies, which is, you know, typically they say that it's because they were fainted, not dead. But I get it. You know, it's like they have certain things that are what's the term for it?
Plot armored?
No, well, you could say plot armored, but it's more like Oh, there's a specific term for it. But I
You
honestly,
want world
feel
building?
like this is everything Nomura makes. This scene right here. I think we need it. I'm gonna make a looping GIF of just that and try to make it a perfect loop. And I'd be like, everything Tetsuya Nomura does. That is his game. That's what he does with Kingdom Hearts. It's what he does with Final Fantasy. This is what he thinks is interesting. And it drives me nuts because it's not what made the Final Fantasies great. Watching Rosh drive in a perfect loop, doing things that defies no gravity, like gravity whatsoever, is not what I wanted added to Final Fantasy VII. This is what I wanted taken away from everything that Square did in the last 20 years. That's my thoughts on this. If Square got rid of all of this, it would make all of their games better, in my opinion. It's why people feel more about Nier Automata than they do about anything Square's released in the last 10 years. It's why you and I enjoyed the story in Aegis Rim more than this, right? This does not make it better.
Aegis Rim also plays on our inspiration and what's the correct term? Imagination.
Yeah.
Like it makes you think what's happened and doesn't show you what happens.
What makes you question? It gives you kind of like 3 or 4 paths of what potentially could be happening. And then is it time travel? Is it the future? Is it something, right? It's like you have these threads that you can follow to their conclusion because it's jumping you. Is this actually this or is it something else? And they played that out in a really smart way. But like,
well, and then there's their gameplay, which is a glorified tower defense that forces you to use your imagination of how the fight goes because it's literally just dots on a screen.
Yeah.
Shooting lines.
Yeah. I hear you, but I mean, the speed up here. I'm sorry. Like every scene with this character on it just infuriates me. This is like,
get used to him.
Oh my,
he's going to be
what?
a super main character.
And when I played I enjoyed parts of the game, and then I was worried most about it in the end. And then when I played Intergrade all the way through, and all of that Crisis Core garbage that came at the end of it, I'm like, this is exactly what I didn't want them to include in it. This is everything that, like, give me Katase plus Sakaguchi. It's what I'm dying for.
You're going to see, well, we all are going to see going from part 2 on how much actually Nomura is putting into it and how much the others are.
Well, who's directing part 2?
It's Katase, isn't it?
I don't think so. Katase was upgraded to producer.
It's not Nomura because he's going back to being just the lead character designer, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's Sakaguchi, it's someone else.
No, Sakaguchi doesn't work at Square anymore. Mistwalker. The weird thing is, like, when you play Sakaguchi's games post leaving Square, like Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey, Last Story, and the most recent one for iPhone. What was it called?
I don't have an iPhone, so I have no sweet clue.
Yeah, I know. As soon as you play his games, you get the feel they're not as good as Square's heyday, but you also get the feel that they're exactly what Square is missing now. You simultaneously say they're not the best games like this, but they show, you get the feeling immediately of what Square is missing. The world feels more tangible right away. You know, it's like the Lost Odyssey intro. While being over the top,
having an immortal character.
That's the big part of the story. It's actually made some beautiful writing, and especially the short stories.
The all-new
Stupid ads.
2022 Outlander is designed with family in mind.
Skip. So if you watch the intro to Lost Odyssey in comparison to this, it's like this could easily be more from the vein of what Final Fantasy VIII was. People are walking on the ground. No one's flying through the sky. No one's hitting a building with people. Oh, when they get hit with a sword, they look pretty dead. Right? The music, the vibe. And even when they have Chaim come onto the scene, and he is incredibly more powerful, it still feels more grounded than anything we just watched on the 7 remake or with Rosh. Yeah, it's not like, I would say, as perfect as like Final Fantasy VIII, but you still get much more of the feel of characters having weight, having wrist. Look at how heavy this feels, this machine, as it slices through everyone, versus what we saw in the 7 remake. It's like that, as it rolls over a body, you see it tip slightly, right? The world feels like a place. It feels like objects are in the way.
Well, it feels more like our world is what you should actually be saying.
Well, it feels more like gravity exists, which is pretty critical for any world where people exist on the ground.
Well, going by video game standards, they tend to have like far greater gravity than us, but they can still jump far greater in the air than us.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, you're going to have changes in the world or whatnot, but I mean, there's very few things that pull off expanding the rules of their universe without losing tangibility. I think my favorite example of one that managed to do it was Gurren Lagann, which managed to make you feel like the risk exists despite the scale getting so ridiculous. And I would argue that they failed at that with Kill la Kill, where I didn't believe the tangibility as much in Kill la Kill as I did in Gurren Lagann. But like, even when Chaim is here wrecking people, it still feels more weighted. That slowdown as he jumped in them, as he jumps out by pushing down on him. He didn't just cut through him, you know, like, he just pushed the guy over. Like, I think this is as over the top you can get while still maintaining some world tangibility. I don't know if you can go much further.
I don't know. What about Asura's Wrath?
Well, Azura's Wrath is just fun, but it's not trying to make you care about the characters in the same way. It's trying to make you hyped. And this is kind of where... And this is one of the best transitions to gameplay, I think.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I like... But anyways, when you see this, like Lost Odyssey here, you immediately get the feel that this is what left Square. This is what's no longer there, right? It's like, it's not perfect. He never has the same budget again. He needed to be held in by Katase as well. I know he did this scenario for Final Fantasy VII, so he wrote the scenario and Katase directed it, you know, and they had their back and forth. But like, there is no game from me that I played that was directed by Nomura that I've loved. I've loved games by Katase, I've loved games by Sakaguchi, but nothing by Nomura is a game that I actually loved. There's lots of them that I've tried to like Kingdom Hearts, like 7 Remake, like that, but they all give me that Rosh feel. They all lose that tangibility that somehow, even with him literally like cutting down 50 people here, you feel more world tangibility in that. Anyways, those are my thoughts. That's my rant. Agree with me, disagree with me. If you don't like me, that's fine. Let me know in the comments below. But those are my feelings about what it takes in directing and making a game to try to improve world tangibility and that. You might love the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I have you're allowed to that opinion. It doesn't bother me at all. But this is my own feeling.
It bothers him a lot.
It doesn't bother me
like
that
a
much.
lot. Like every day I hear about it.
You do not hear about it every day. Anyways, yeah, I hope you like the video. If you do, feel free to click the like and subscribe button. If you don't like it, that's fine. And I'll catch you on the next one.